Remaking what the military trained. It's you and your story. Support for the MILMO Show is provided by Navy Federal Credit Union. Being in debt can take a serious toll on your finances and mental well-being. Navy Federal Credit Union can help you take control of your debt. They offer financial tools and resources designed to help you tackle debt. They're offering 0% intro APR on credit card balance transfers for 12 months. Plus, you can earn $250 when you spend $2,500 within the first 90 days on a Cash Rewards or Cash Rewards Plus credit card. You can learn more at NavyFederal.org. Hey, welcome to the MILMO Show, where I help the military community make, save, and invest money wisely. I'm your host, Lacey Langford. Leaving the military can mean your entire identity is changing. It can be overwhelming. What is next for you, your career, and your mission? In this episode, Olivia Nunn shares her journey from military service to becoming a leading advocate for mental health and an authority in the branding world. We'll dive into how she navigated the challenges of transitioning to entrepreneurship, her insights on destigmatizing mental health within the military and veteran communities, and why storytelling is key to building a strong personal or professional brand even when you're selling products. Olivia Nunn, a seasoned veteran with over 20 years of dedicated service in the U.S. Army, leads Olivia Nunn Communications with a commitment to making a difference. With a solid foundation of 13 years of experience in government relations, Olivia specializes in communications, branding, social media strategy, and event planning, bringing her expertise to the forefront to craft compelling narratives and strategies that elevate brands and amplify voices. So here is my chat with Olivia. Hey, Olivia Nunn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to meet you and have this conversation with you because there are a lot of things that you have done in your work in the military and post-military that I find so inspiring, and I think everybody else is going to too. So I want to start with, you did 20 years in the Army to where you are now. How did you go from there and pick the direction that you wanted to go to, and maybe some of the steps that you took to get there?
So I like to say I'm an accidental entrepreneur. There was nothing in my mind that I thought that I was going to own my own business. And the reason why I said that is when I was planning my exit from the Army, at the time I was married. I was married for 16 years, but with my spouse at the time for 20, and we have 2 kids together. And my plan was I was going to work a nonprofit, just kind of doing something that was more of a passion project. He was going to own his business, and we were going to live this beautiful life together. Well, life kind of takes this different track, right? Throws a curveball, and I went through an unexpected divorce. And I ended up going into government contracting. And by way of trade, I was a Army public affairs officer. So I used that skill set, plugged that directly into government contracting. I was a public affairs officer doing what I did in the Army, but as a contractor. And I realized that wasn't my cup of tea. And all the signs were around me. I was having conversations with people, but that conversation was planted when I was in the Army, working for U.S. Army Soldier for Life, how I should get into consulting, doing what I was doing. And all of the things just kind of, in this perfect storm, just kind of came about in one conversation at a business meeting. It was at a Wonder Woman dinner, and everyone kept saying, you need to go into business for yourself. And I was unhappy at what I was doing as a government contractor, and I needed to find focus and something that I was passionate about. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I had a client already that I was working with, and I decided I'm going to double down on myself and go into work for myself. And that's what I did.
That's amazing. You said accidental. Going from active duty to where you're at now, were there some challenges that you had along the way? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of figuring it out. And what were some of the ways that you overcame those challenges?
A lot of it was, I think, Google. A lot of it was leaning in on my friends who were successful entrepreneurs. I think the other part was I was lucky to have access to resources that were around me. And the resource that I'm talking about was my last job in the Army was U.S. Army Soldier for Life. And we were in the business of transitioning service members out of the military. And lack of layman's terms, we were matchmakers. Army, meet corporate America meet the Army. And we helped everything from transitioning into businesses, into jobs, into education or health and wellness. And so in that job, I was able to work with a lot of industries and a lot of organizations. So I had quite a plethora of information and access to different organizations. So I was able to tap into that knowledge, into the different people that I know, and ask them these questions and say, hey, what should I be doing? What should I not be doing? And all the classes that I was able to attend, all the different networking events that I had gone to while I was on active duty, and just kind of start really going back into my memory banks and realizing I kind of just learned by going through all of that and now really utilizing that information for myself. And then I think the other part was when you jump all in, you are going to learn by mistake, I think, right? Either you realize that this is the right thing that you're doing, or you just don't do it that way again. And I bootstrapped my whole business, right? There was no loans that I took out. I haven't been able to, go to a bank and say, hey, I need this. Everything that I've done by myself, which parts of it has been really scary, and the other part has been very liberating.
I think you have a unique situation being involved with Soldier for Life. There's a lot of people that don't take full advantage of resources like that. What's your advice to them about taking the leap out of the military, whether you're retiring or separating? I think some people just want to leave that behind and discount those resources. What's your advice to them about those?
You have to use your resources. I'm also a motivational speaker, and I talk about how you need to tell your story and you need to be able to tap in to your community. The title veteran is not given, it's earned, and you have to utilize the resources that are around you. You might not use it the day after you get out, but maybe you'll use it 5 years down the road. And it is such a tribe of people and resources and organizations that you should lean in on. Whether it's for your business, whether it's for health and wellness, whether it's for education. And I absolutely want our community to understand that it's there for you. And it's important that you lean on that, the resources that are there. Transitioning from the military is hard. It's not easy. Wearing the nation's cloth, whether you wore it for 3 years or for 30 years, it was a part of you. And when you leave that, it's a change, and it's a hard change. Some people do it better than others, but it's still going to be a change. And it's a emotional, mental, spiritual change. And everyone will hit those differences at different points in their life. And you've got to be able to have people that understand what that change is like, what that transition is like, and to be able to tap back into that resource is going to be important. Whether you're going to be an entrepreneur, or whether you're going to corporate America, or whether you're going to go to college and earn your degree, whether that's a bachelor's or a master's or even a PhD.
How does storytelling play into that if you're going into corporate America? I could see maybe with entrepreneurship, but even then, I think some people discount their experience in the military because they're surrounded by people that have the same type of experience, but they're going out into the world. And I think that they're not necessarily, in some cases probably don't want to share their story, but some people are like, oh, what do they care to hear about that from me?
It's interesting. So in Soldier for Life, we spent a lot of time messaging the value of the veteran. And we saw a huge uptake in organizations and companies wanting to hire veterans. The skill set that we obtained in the military, the soft skill sets, those are the skill sets that corporate America are seeking, right? Our leadership, the ability to make decisions under stress, the ability to lead a team, whether it's a 2-person team or a 200-person team, the ability to make decisions on the fly, to adjust quickly. Those are all skills that we have learned in the military, and that's what corporate America wants. At the same time, we know how to work in a team. We also know how to work in a team regardless of race, creed, religion, or gender. We come from different zip codes across America, and in that we learn to become a team. And that's the beautiful part of the military. And so we understand diversity. And we know how to overcome our differences and find the commonality and still get the mission done. And that's why corporate America seeks us out. And that's why I think it's important to share the fact that you are a veteran and that you have a skill set that they're looking for. And you should be proud of the fact that you are a veteran. Less than 1% serve in any one of the 6 branches. And I think that's worth touting.
Yes, absolutely. And this is kind of switching gears, but kind of the same line that, there are some experiences that people have had in the military that have caused some mental health issues. And I know that you are a big advocate for the military and veteran community when it comes to mental health. What led you into that and to become a kind of a voice in that space?
So it's my own personal story. Like I said, I did 20 years, and as I was retiring, I was married. And as I was retiring, I went through my own mental health crisis. I went through an unexpected divorce, and that sent me to rock bottom. And it wasn't just my unexpected divorce, but I had to come to grips with all of the things that I had compartmentalized in my career. We are good in the military of kind of suck it up and drive on. And I had been assaulted when I was a first lieutenant by my own platoon sergeant. I've dealt with a lot of sexual harassment. There's a lot of things that happened during my 3 deployments to Iraq that I just kind of, shoved it into a box and closed the lid, right? All my near misses of death, all the trauma that I've seen. And I just opened the lid, shoved that incident, closed the lid. And I kept doing that over the 20 years of my career. And when I finally came to the end, and I think that, and this unexpected divorce, and then at the same time I was divorcing the Army, if you will, retiring, I think my mind just couldn't take it anymore. My mind just said, this is enough. And I had to come to grips with everything that I had gone through in 20 years. And I had hit rock bottom. And when I hit rock bottom, I was in a dark, very lonely place. And I started to plan my way out of this world and was almost very successful with that. And for me, asking for help was one of the hardest things that I had ever done in my life. And I asked for help. I did get help. And for me, I realized on the backside of it, when I was asking for help, there was a lot of roadblocks. There was a lack of resources in trying to seek help. And I realized that here I was, a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army who knew a lot of organizations, that had access to a lot of organizations, and I couldn't get the help. And for those that understand the military structure, the lieutenant colonel isn't the majority of the Army. The majority of the Army is E5 and below. I understand, and I have, if you can say from a funny way, the paycheck to say, I'm not going to take no. But someone who's an E5 or an E4 and E3, they're going to accept no as the answer. Yeah. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with someone who's that young who's going to accept no. And that's why we have 22 a day. Really, it's more 44 a day committing suicide within the military community. And for me, I think that's unacceptable. So for me, what I feel like the thing that I'm passionate about is how do I use what I know? How do I use the position that I was once in, the resources that I have access to, the voice that I've been able to obtain, the position that I was once in, the people that I know to help drive 44 to 0.
Do you think that there are more resources available now, or that is changing the conversations? Because I completely agree with you as a lieutenant colonel. Like, what if that's happening to you? What's happening to the E5? Lower ranking that not having the resources or not being comfortable enough to come forward to utilize those resources. So, do you think it's changing, or that we still have a long way to go?
I think there is a change. We're starting to see a change, but I still think we have a long way to go. I think leadership from top down is starting to have these conversations, but there's still a stigma. My tagline is break the silence, end the stigma, and rewrite the narrative when it comes to military mental health. But it's going to take time. We need to see the top leadership of the military saying, I'm going to take a knee today and address my mental health and go get seen.
Yep.
And it's not just that. It's also leadership saying that it's okay if you do the same. And it's not going to affect your clearance. It's not going to affect your standing within your organization. You're not going to be ostracized. You're not going to lose your clearance. You're not going to use your position. All of those things. And then at the same time, what I've noticed is if you are in that crisis moment, where are the organizations that if you dial their number, they're going to effectively be able to assist you? And the honest truth is there are organizations that are out there, they're just not resourced enough because there's not enough resources. And that's the thing, right? There's just only so much people, time, and money that can go around. And we need more. Simply, we just need more.
Do you think it's hitting the veteran community even more because people have time to unwind? Like there is this change in your identity when you leave the military, you're losing your rank, your position, your status, often you're higher person on the totem pole. Is that something that happens like because you are now having time to process what you have been through? I think with the ops tempo, the way it's been for so many years, I know it's better now, but just back to back to back to back and never have time to fully, I feel like everybody's a clock, just wound tight. Do you think that has to do with like the unpacking?
I think that's part of it. I think part of it is being able to sit and kind of figure yourself out. I think the other part is, what is your trauma, right? Are you a combat veteran? And so what did you see and go through? Have you been able to address that? Have you been able to go get seen for that? And then, what is it that what is your coping mechanism, right? There's a lot of us that are functioning alcoholics or functioning on a lot of pain meds because we are in a lot of pain. There's a reason why we have a high disability rate. Our bodies have been put through a lot. So what is your coping mechanism? And are we being effectively treated? There's a reason why we say that the VA just prescribes meds, right? And that's, I don't think, the answer. There are different treatments for each one of us, and what may work for you may not work for me. And I think we've got to be open to all the different treatments that are available and bring that to the table. But I think there's a lot of bureaucracy, right? The VA's got its issues. And I'm not here to bash the VA. I think the VA works for a lot of people and the VA doesn't necessarily work for some. But what I will say, though, is that there's a lot of bureaucracy and we've got to be able to cut through that so that our veterans can be seen, so that they can be heard and the right treatment is given to them. And we're not dealing with the lengthy time or denied treatment because at the end of the day, we're losing too many.
What's your advice for anybody that's listening or watching that is having a hard time, that is struggling, that is at rock bottom, for reaching out or how to get help?
I will say asking for help is going to be the hardest thing you're ever going to say. Just physically uttering the words, I need help, will be the hardest thing. But there's such strength in asking. And then just know that it is a lifelong journey of healing. You're going to have your moments of light and moments of dark. But just know that you are worthy. And being here is a gift for not only yourself, but those that care about you. When you ask for help, just know that while it is tough in asking for help, the people that are in your community are going to be right there with you.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask. I think the thing that a lot struggle with is the thought of I'm a burden. That if I let people know that I'm hurting or that I need help, that I'm just a burden to them, which is the exact far from the truth.
Absolutely. Yes, I completely agree that sometimes people don't talk all the time. People have their lives, but that they are waiting for that call. Like if you need them, they're going to answer it. So I completely agree, but I also can understand the difficulty of just saying you need help and trying to unpack that to somebody else. And I think in the veteran, especially community, that we always think there's somebody else that has it worse. So it's like, why should I, because other people, and I don't think you can do that. Like in that moment, like everybody wants to stop and help you. So kudos to you for doing that, for reaching out for help. It says a lot about you. And I think it's a great example to set for veterans and for female veterans, things they've gone through. And there are people that want to help. And especially like, I can imagine like if somebody reached out to you, you would, bend over backwards to help them. So just as a good testament that there are people out there like you that are a voice in this community for that reason. So
I would also say, what I would note is don't let social media fool you into thinking that the person doesn't need help, right? Social media is such a snapshot in time. And don't think that the person that you're following, or that because they put this highlight reel that their day is amazing, or that they've been at this event or that gala or this event and they're smiling, that they're not hurting, or that they're not at their lowest point in their life. That I would challenge you, to those that are listening, to pick up the phone, to text them, to call them. You never know if that your text or your call could be the saving point in their life in that day. Just simply saying, hey, buddy, I'm thinking of you. I just want to check in on you and make sure you're doing okay. Because you have no idea if you are judging just based on social media alone. And I say this often, smiles hide a lot. Just because they're smiling, it doesn't mean that they're not hurting or that they're not hiding the immense amount of pain that they're actually going through. So take the time out to be kind and to reach out.
Yeah, I've tried to be better about that, especially given what I do, like, financial coaching, talk with people that are really struggling. And even I just see somebody, like, I try to do a lot more, just wanted to say, hey, like, oh, I saw this picture of you, you look beautiful, or, that looked like a fun trip, or I'm not one to comment a lot on social media. I'm not really into that, but I like sending messages to people and say, hey, I'm thinking of you. So I love that idea that, that takes 2 seconds, to be like, love that. Okay, I want to switch gears for a minute now and talk about your communication and branding. As a public affairs officer, I can't imagine like all of the, especially like, I think I find it more curious given what I do, but like just all the things that you have done for the Army in that capacity. And so, what advice would you give veterans and military people, the community that are looking to build their personal and professional brands? Because that can seem overwhelming, because in the military, it's like, it's not about me. It's about the mission and, the people beside me. But, starting your career and starting a business, like, it does have to be a little bit about you. And that's a foreign concept to our community. So what's your advice for people to get started?
Absolutely. So I specialize in communication, branding, and social media strategy. And what I tell people is that you are a brand, believe it or not. And I think when you say branding, people think automatically Nike or Under Armour or something like that, right? Not realizing that you are your actual own brand and you've actually been branding yourself all along. And so what I walk people through in branding is very simple, right? We walk through, what is it? Answering questions about what is your company? What is your mission statement? Who are you trying to reach? So it's who are you? What do you do? And to whom are you talking to? And then simple questions like, what are your favorite colors? What are the things that attract in terms of simplicity of lines or concepts or boldness? Those types of things to kind of figure out what is it that make you inherently you? And then what is your company line, right? And then tie all those things together to figure out what is your brand, right? And I think when you break it down in those small pieces, it all comes together in a picture. And then the next part of branding is storytelling. You sell yourself in every single post, in every single story. And what I mean by that is no one's going to buy you when you sell the product directly. People buy from you when you sell yourself in the very everyday things. What do I mean by that? Let's take finance, for example. If you're a financial planner, no one's going to buy from you if every single day you're posting about pick me as a financial planner because I'm going to invest your money in X, Y, and Z. Well, okay, great. But they may pick you if what you're posting is that you put on your pants the same way, you like sports, you are an avid skier, those types of things. You have to connect with your audience, and they want to know that you are a person too, that you do the things that they like to do too. That's the storytelling. And when you build trust and confidence with the audience and they're following you in the everyday things that you do, then they're going to understand, oh yeah, by the way, this person happens to be a financial planner. And that's how you commit your audience. That's how you commit your audience into wanting to buy in what you give to them, which is the financial planning, especially when it comes to something like money, right? Because it's such a touchy-feely topic. That's just one example. And that's in any example, right? Whether you're a florist or hairstylist, a money planner, you've got to sell you because people want to know that you are just like them.
When you say storytelling, is that, for some people who really never thought about that, that's not making up a story.
No.
You are just honing the message that truly is your story. Like, you're a veteran, got out, you are in branding, or me, like, veteran military spouse, like, started a business, like, because of my military life and all this stuff. So you're telling part of who you are, but just honed, correct?
Correct. Like, if you think about the people that you follow on social media, right? Think about the things that make you laugh or the things that make you pause as you're scrolling through the reels or through your daily things on your page. What makes you stop at that individual? It's probably something that they're telling. And it's not necessarily storytelling per se, but they are telling something about what they're doing, whether it's they laughed at something or that they're doing something funny. But in that method, they're letting you in on who they are. That's what you're doing. And when you keep doing that, and there is a specific way, right? You do it consistently, you do it every single day, and you show up, that's how you're selling. That's how you're telling. That's how you're letting your audience know. And that's how you build your brand.
Yes. I could see that about people I follow. I've started to try to pay attention to, wait a minute, like, why did I continue to watch this? Or like, I follow her, was it Jesse James Decker? Like, she's a singer, cookbook author, married to an ex-football player. And some of her stories, it's like, why am I watching this, whatever, but it really kind of all goes together. Like, she's all about her family, and she's sharing, all about her family, and her husband's part of her business that has clothing. And so she's showing off the clothes, and, so it's not just like she's posting about her clothing line or her cookbook. She's actually entwining that and like, hey, I'm baking my kid's sick, I'm making my favorite chicken soup recipe that's in my cookbook, or so it kind of goes together, but it's very authentic. So I see what you're saying. Like, you have to pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah. And you said authentic, right? Be you, because nobody else can be you except for you. And when you show up as yourself, your goofy, funny, loving self, right? That's what people want to know. They want to know that you make mistakes just like them, that you're not going to be perfect all the time, right? That doesn't mean that you can't be camera ready. I'm not saying like you can't show up with your makeup done or your hair done. If that's what makes you feel amazing, then do it. But at the same time, I don't want people to feel like they have to be pressured to, I need to say this exactly the right way, or that I have to have every hair in place. People want to know that you're a person, that you wake up, that you make mistakes, that you feel just like them.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially in our community. I think, veterans are very authentic, most of them. And so, if you aren't authentic, it's like they know right away, like they're not, I think it's the line of business. And I think in the money space too, it's like if you're not authentic, people will pick up on that real quick. Social media can be a really powerful tool, but I think, especially in the military community, that's something that is not encouraged to be, show. I know some things are changing now, but what is your message for people to get into social media that have been pushed away from it for so long while they're in the military, that maybe need it for their career or for their business?
So, we know like a lot of special operators don't use it, right? Especially because it's dangerous for their business in terms of what they do, and I understand that. And then you've got people that operate in high clearances, and so they try to stay away from it. I get that. At some point in your career, you're going to come to a point where you're going to have to take off the uniform, and you've got to establish yourself on social media. So when you know that that's going to become your point where where you're getting close to taking off your uniform, we said in Soldier for Life 24 months. You need to start establishing your space on social media, because you can't just appear online. Ta-da! I'm here, and expect people to know you. You've got to start establishing that, especially if you get into entrepreneurship. With that being said, that doesn't mean you need to be on every single platform. What I teach, and I also teach on social media, is that figure out the platform that you need to be on and be on that platform. And I would say, do 2 or 3, but no more than 3, unless you just really want to go crazy and you want to hire somebody to manage. Because the thing is, once you start, you have to feed the beast. You have to be consistent. And so manage the platforms that best make sense for the business that you're going to be in. For the most part, what I recommend for most military members, you definitely want to be on LinkedIn. Why? Because that is a networking tool. That is a platform where people are going to come on and off in order to network. It's a business platform. A lot of times you're probably going to do a lot of business type networking for jobs. People are posting jobs there. There's a lot of that in that space. So that's a great platform to be on for that reason. Now, if you're trying to sell things, you're trying to connect from an entrepreneur perspective, Instagram is a great platform, right? So maybe running those 2 platforms are great. I don't really talk too much about Twitter, now known as, X, unless news is something that's going to be that space for you. If you're getting into journalism, and the only reason why it's not a bad platform, please don't take that as such. It's a fast-paced platform, and that particular platform, you have to feed that particular beast all the time, consistently, and so most people don't have the time for that. So I recommend most people don't even bother. You're going to drive yourself nuts. Whereas you can probably do better with other platforms that are a little more powerful.
X is one that I feel like I have been trying to change like my strategy there. One thing I've noticed too is now they're doing longer form video like YouTube, which so to me it's like right now that's hard too, because it's changing. It's changing so much. Not to mention it's fast paced, but then the way you can put information in there is changing too. So agree with that one, might be harder to tackle right now than the other ones. Switching back, you mentioned we talked earlier about entrepreneurship. What's your advice for people, especially veterans that are looking to start into entrepreneurship to get started? Because when you say like, hey, I want to start a business, be an entrepreneur, that can seem overwhelming. So how should people get started?
There are a lot of programs out there that can help you into entrepreneurship, right? If you're a woman, there's VWise. There are other great programs that are out there that are within the resourcing for veterans that can help you on the entrepreneurship track, right? That will arm you with the tools that can help you. Hey, what are the things that you need to think about? How do I start a business? Am I an LLC or an S corp? Do I need an accountant, right? All of those things that I had no clue that in year 1 I had to quickly figure out. And I'm still learning, right? Should I have bought that with my business card, or should that have been a personal, right? Managing my taxes on time, right?
Yeah.
Oops, that shouldn't have gone there, right? All of those things. All of those things are very important. And there's a great program, Warrior Rising, that was started by a good friend of mine, Jason. And there is a wait list for that program, but it is a great way if you want to go into entrepreneurship that he's going to give you the tools and help you start your program. But he's just one, right? IVMF has a ton of tools and resources if you want to get into entrepreneurship. Those are just two off the top of my head. Small Business Bureau also has some great tools and resources. So does it require you to kind of put your thinking cap on? Absolutely. But that is the way you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you're going to need that a lot in entrepreneurship as a thinking cap. Yes. And I feel like a decision-making cap. Recently, I was telling somebody, like, I'm just at decision fatigue. I mean, just absolutely. I guess, as a leader, like, you're very familiar with that and entrepreneurship. But at some point, it's just like, woo, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot of long hours. I heard this before, and I thought that I was very naive, I think, when it was told to me. They said, you don't really make money in your first 5 years, right? And I think when I first heard that, I was like, okay, whatever, And I think I was very naive to that comment because when I started my business, and because I was such this accidental entrepreneur and I already had a client, I was like, I'm going to be fine, right?
I'm going to break that statistic.
I'm going to break the statistic, this naive me. And, my first year of business was fantastic. And then I crashed, right? And I was like, yep, that is so true.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that everyone's like that, right? There's a lot of businesses that do extremely well and they never hit bottom, right? And they just continue. Maybe they come really close and they learn how to course correct. But I think like having that really naive, like, I wouldn't do that, right? I think there is reason why people give you such great advice, and I think you should definitely pay attention to that.
I love that. All right, I want to ask you a couple of quick random questions I ask everybody. First off, what is one resource or tool that you use in your life or your work that makes your life easier?
I would say for me, Canva. Canva is such a great tool for me as a PR agent, when I'm constantly making, different, flyers or like Canva's the way to go.
I love that. It's funny you say that because I've recently hired some people to do some graphics, and now I'm like, can you develop that in Canva so that I can reuse and repurpose those things that I have created? So love that one. What is your favorite book right now or your favorite book of all time?
Ooh. I would probably have to say, I know this is such an old one, is probably Gone with the Wind. And I know a lot of people would probably say I'm nuts for that because of all like the racial context and all of that. But for me, it was never about that. I think it was just the love story for me. It was always the love story between Rhett and Scarlett.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'll be sure to share those links in the show notes for everybody. All right, now it is time for my favorite part of the podcast, which is game time. And in honor of your visit, we're going to play a special game I've never played before called Read My Mind. So I am going to be, and I've already queued them up, I am thinking of numbers, and you have to guess what number I'm thinking of. It's a number between 1 and 10. And if you get 2 of the 3 numbers correct, you get bragging rights that you won game time on the MILMO Show. But this one might be a little hard. I will say you have the most difficult. So of reading, but I love it. I'm doing it with another woman, so it's like reading a woman's mind. I know it's difficult. So okay, all right. I'm thinking of a number. What between 1 and 10? What is the number?
7.
Okay, it is not. It is 1. I just want you to know I'm not cheating. Okay. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What is it?
8.
You're so close. You know what made me think of this game? Have you ever seen Ghostbusters in the beginning where they're like testing if you can read minds anyway? It's really funny, and you get shocked if you get the wrong number.
I'd be forever shocked.
So I'm not, there's no electricity.
I feel like I would be slimed by Slimer.
Yes. Okay. Last one. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What is the number?
I'm going to say 10 since you started with 1. It is 10.
I was trying Mine too. Okay, so you got one rice. You're very close to bragging rights, but not quite there. I appreciate you coming, playing the game, and being on the show. Can you tell everybody listening and watching where they can learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So I have my own website. It's www.olivianunn.com. I'm actually on LinkedIn and on Instagram as _Olivia Nunn. And I would love to be able to connect with anybody who wants to know more about social media or branding. And I'm actually very active in the military veteran space. So if you want to know more about what I do in that space, please connect with me. And I thank you so much.
No, thank you. I'll be sure to link to all of that for everybody in the show notes and description. So
Thank you.
thanks to Olivia for coming on the show. Also, thank you to Navy Federal for providing support to the MilMo Show. You can head over to milmo.co to get all of the links and the resources from this episode. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for the MilMo newsletter to get all of my updates. I appreciate you listening, and I'll talk to you next week.